Hello. I wanted to say a few words today about the self-esteem and setting boundaries. As far as our self-esteem is concerned, one of the key factors that we can use in order to maintain high self-esteem is to actually have the ability to set boundaries and to be able to therefore protect our self-esteem as we go along. So I just want to unpack that a little bit today so that we can take that issue forward and support our personal power and our self-esteem in the future. So one of the things that we can do to support our ability to maintain boundaries is to actually practice identifying when we need to set a boundary in our life, in our relationships and situations, so that our self-esteem isn't harmed in the various situations and relationships that we find ourselves in. And also then, when we raise our self-esteem, as I've mentioned in my other videos, it can be easier then to actually determine the types of situations and relationships that we actually get involved in the first place. But today I'm highlighting one key, which is maintaining the ability to set strong boundaries in our lives so that our self-esteem isn't undermined by our inability to set a boundary, and therefore possibly to not be able to get out of the sort of situations that are detracting from our self-esteem. So I want to mention two really factors in order to support you in being able to maintain boundaries and therefore support your self-esteem in the future. So one of the things that is very useful to do is to foster the ability to maintain strong boundaries in our lives. And in order to do that, it's quite useful to be able to set the boundary within first with ourselves, which is saying to ourselves, I need to set a boundary in this situation or relationship or whatever it is, and I need to be able to set those boundaries in a way that actually protects myself and also protects my self-esteem and my confidence levels. So that's the first thing really is to actually be able to identify when we need to set a boundary in a relationship or a situation. Hopefully, before that situation and that relationship potentially detracts from our life and our self-esteem levels. Because when we have higher self-esteem levels, it's often easier to be able to set boundaries with ourselves and with other people. Because when our self-esteem is lowered and our personal power is lowered, it can be harder then to be able to set boundaries and to be aware of the types of situations that are actually undermining our personal power. So that's really key, is to be able to identify when we need to set a boundary, and then to be able to have the skills and the tools in order to either verbally set that boundary, or if the other person doesn't want to listen to our boundary setting, when we have verbally stated that that behaviour is inappropriate, for instance, then to potentially, if we need to be able to walk away from the situation. So it's quite a good idea to foster this ability to be able to identify when we need to set a boundary and to be able to follow through on that boundary setting. And this is where discretion comes in, which is the ability to be able to choose. And when we maintain discretion, in our lives, that ability to be able to make choices, then we have greater flexibility in order to move forward. So, for instance, being able to walk away from any situation is a really good ability to have, because then we're able to boundary our life and our personhood appropriately by being able to set boundaries and being able to say no, and knowing within ourselves that if this behaviour continues and it's detrimental to us and harmful to our lives or our self-esteem, then we know that we're able to, at the end of the day, protect ourselves by being able to walk away or take whatever action is necessary. So boundary setting and self-esteem are quite mutually supportive in terms of the higher our self-esteem is, then the more ability we will have potentially to be able to set boundaries. And the more we are able to set boundaries and to maintain that safe space within our lives and maintain a healthy level of freedom to be able to set boundaries, then the higher our self-esteem is likely to be long term, because we're consistently reinforcing our self-esteem by protecting it and boundarying it for the future, because then it just builds and builds, and we are able to maintain it at a higher level. And in that way, of course, we're also protecting our personal power along the way by maintaining high self-esteem and by maintaining the ability to set appropriate boundaries as we go along. So, as always, stay safe and very happy. Bye-bye.